All right, so this is one of those funny moments for me, where I guess I'm a little triggered. But I'm triggered not in like an angry thing, but just like an incredulity. I can't say the fucking word. I just can't believe that something is so hard to understand in this thing, and for an angry disapproval of something is in this particular case, in such a situation, this goes along the lines of some of the things I've talked about before about like talking about like block guards and cylinder support system and other things like that, and then like 500 horsepower stock blocks and shit like that. It's just like finding the it's like when you're doing a scientific experiment, right? There's a reason why they do study groups on different things, because you can have something happen during a study group or during one occasion and be like, oh, well, that must be the reason. But then you don't know for sure if that was the reason. So you got to do multiple tests and multiple case studies, right? That's the same thing like with block guards. Like I say, block guards are placebos, they're placebos, and it's like, well, I made this much power using a block guard. You didn't really. You made the same power you would have made if you hadn't had the block guard there. It really didn't do anything, and introducing it didn't really change anything. That's why you got to do multiple case studies. You got to see push the limits. Like, where would the stock block fail at consistently? Have a block guard there, and if it still fails consistently, then you know that the block guard's never really doing anything. And like this, I don't want it to be about that. It's just one of those things I've talked about a whole bunch of times that are bad, right? So here's one of these things, like like outlier situation, right? So I was going through Durf's, or I wasn't going through Durf's tuning maps, but I just seen one of his shit pop up in my feed, and it was like a K24. I think it was a K24 K20 that would have had like RBC. It had an RBC intake manifold that was port matched with like a big throttle body and a cold air intake and exhaust. And it made 268 wheel horsepower on fucking pump. And that threw me for a fucking loop, because you don't really typically see that too often. Stock block, stock head, and it made that kind of power on fucking 93. I don't know. But then every once in a while you have an outlier. And so what you do is you have that one freak block that could be like that, and then you go and you see multiple other builds and see where the power normally is, right? Also, too, you gotta think that here's also something that some of you guys don't really know. You can tune, make a certain amount of horsepower, leave, go to another dyno, and you won't necessarily make that same horsepower. It'll be, most likely a little lower. I guess possibly a little bit more. But the number you roll off with that day on the tune doesn't necessarily stay that way forever. It's subject to change, plus or minus a little bit, I guess. And it's the same thing like when you race and you race at an index, right? You race like 9.5 index. It means your car has hit 9.5 before, or in that bracket range. But it doesn't necessarily mean when you launch off down the strip that you're going to hit 9.5. It just means that that's the class you're in because you've hit that before, right? So here's to talk about this. The reason why I'm talking about this is because that video I uploaded about the follow-up for the VTEC killer for the thing, and then like I said in that video that only one person that I see on the internet claimed 200 horsepower from just dropping in those that VTEC killer setup with those cams on the stock block, and I'm like, that it's a 40 horsepower gain that he's claiming for that. And the reason why I gotta call bullshit on that is because I don't know any aftermarket cams that you can just drop in and make that kind of horsepower gain. 40 horsepower is a lot for a cam upgrade. Now, something I've talked about before too is cam upgrades really work at the best and they're most optimal when you're also raising compression. The fucking K20A3 is a low compression block. And you're throwing in stock cams for an A2. So here's the go for example, right? If you look at a stock K20A2 or stock Z3 or whatever, if you roll those on a dyno, generally speaking, they're like 180 horsepower. So you're talking about a 150 wheel horsepower, 140 wheel horsepower engine that you're taking those cams from a 180 wheel horsepower engine, and all of a sudden you're making 200 wheel horsepower. If you don't see that's fucking something that seems to be impossible, then you need to learn. You need to do a little bit more fucking information digging and researching on engine building. Seeing a big number on there makes you happy because that's what you want to do. But don't fucking blind yourself to the fucking basic, simple truth and facts of things. You're not gonna drop in an OEM cam on a low ass compression engine and bounce to 40 horsepower. It's not fucking happening, guys. So there's no reason to be angry about something like that. If you want to see the truth of something and you're looking for some information, look at multiple cases. Do not stop when you see the number you want to see. I do it myself when I'm researching. If I'm looking for something, and we're all biased. We tend to, that's one thing that this generation is credited against is you put yourself in a bubble with people that agree with you, right? And you don't want to step out of it just because you don't want the conflict. You don't want to argue with somebody, right? You're going to disagree on things. But when it comes to this, like, factual shit like this, same as common sense, you don't want to just stop just to see a good number. You want to see all sides, and then you want to see what the case is that's the most consistent number. If the most consistent number is low horsepower and you have one guy claiming that he made big power, something's up there. Either the fucking guy lied, on the setup, he lied on the dyno numbers, or the dyno was reading fucking high. There's a whole bunch of cases. Dyno Jet versus Mustang Dyno versus Hub Dyno. There's all kinds of different cases, scenarios for numbers to be off. But and there's even like the corrected numbers that you have, and it just. You're not taking an OEM cam, dropping it on a low compression engine, and making fucking a 40 horsepower gain. That's just not happening. Sorry, not sorry. Trying to help you guys out, man. Don't fucking get yourself, and then the fucked up thing is the people that would be upset about shit like this are the people who aren't even doing their own work. This is somebody who would take it to a fucking mechanic and spend a goddamn fuck ton of money and then be disappointed when the shit comes off the rollers. This is a story I've talked about a bunch of times before. I had a friend who had a IS300, and I gapped him. So he had a stock auto G35. I gapped the fuck out of him with an SRT4. He thought his G35 was fast. He didn't really know about cars. Then he learned that his car wasn't fast, and then I had to tell him, heartbreak him even some more and tell him the SRT4 is not even fast. So he wanted to swap out cars. He wanted a faster car, and he wanted something that was manual. Now I went with him to a used dealership, and they offered him a straight trade for IS300. Now this was like 6-something years ago, so the car's value was a little bit more. And the fact is, the reason why I went with him on that is like, if you're really you want to keep some kind of luxury and you want manual, grab the IS300 because it's a nice little it has a nice platform already. It's got a 2JZ. So I told him, hey, look, man, get the fucking 2J, just do a stock single turbo, keep the engine stock, just bolt on a single turbo kit and tune, make 300 something, 400 horsepower, 2JZs make a big amount of horsepower on a stock block, right? So, and when he went to go finalize the deal, he went and alone, and they talked him into going to the guys across the street who were 2JZ specialists, and they talked him into a $10,000 engine swap for a JDM 2JZ, right? Now, they convinced him that he was going to make 500 horsepower. I told him that was not going to be the case without tuning and mods. And he didn't tune, didn't put any mods, just dropped it in and sent it. I was like, you're not going to make that kind of power, and you're going to have a 13-second car. Yeah, guess what his best time was in a quarter mile? 13.2. Facts are facts. Doesn't matter whether you fucking like to hear it or not. And just because somebody feeds you some bullshit or you see some rando numbers that are high when everybody else is saying low, that's probably what's going to be the case. It's probably going to be on the low side.